There's basically, right, three components to the American dream, right? There's house, have a house, have a house for your kids, and kind of by definition, this goes back to the geographic lens. The house needs to be like near a place where there's like great job opportunities, right? So it can't be a house in the middle of nowhere. It has to be a house where there's going to be great jobs, and a safe environment and so forth. Number one. Number two is healthcare. You need great healthcare for you and your family. And then three is education. You want to send your kids to good schools. If you disaggregate sectors of the economy over the last 25 years, what you find is basically everything that technology touches basically collapses in price. And so television sets and computer games and everything anything with electronics in it, basically the prices, productivity growth in those sectors has advanced very fast. Product prices have collapsed. Everything is much cheaper. But if you chart housing, education, and healthcare, the prices of those things are skyrocketing, right? And we all see this. It's just the price of housing is exploding, the price of education is exploding, and the price of healthcare. I mean, healthcare is 20% of the economy on its way to 50%, and so the prices are exploding. And so it's like, okay, what makes healthcare? What makes those three components of the American dream have these exploding prices? It's two things. Number one is and these are interrelated, but number one is technology is not really touching them very much. And you could say the tech industry has done a bad job at addressing housing and healthcare and education, or you could say that those industries have been resistant to it. But technology hasn't really touched them that much, which means that the productivity growth hasn't happened in them. And then the other thing is they're heavily regulated. They're heavily dominated by the government. They're heavily regulated. And then in all three of those sectors, the government both restricts supply, right? And so zoning laws and university certifications and so forth, right, mean that it's very hard to actually build new of those three things. And then the government responds to the political pressure caused by the rising prices by subsidizing demand. And of course, if you subsidize demand and fix supply, you get skyrocketing prices, right? And so every time there's a housing crisis, it's perpetual housing crisis in California, the answer always is subsidies for home buyers, which always has the effect of driving prices up further and making the problem worse. Right, and so like that drives, those are the microeconomics of what's happening. I don't think there's easy answers on this, but I think the acknowledgement that this is in fact what's happening, and then I think the people have to decide that they do not want to live this way. I think like the marginal American voter needs to decide. It's just not acceptable that if I can't spend $3 million, I can't have a house that's in a good neighborhood with a good job attached to it, and it's just not acceptable that a 4-year college degree is going to cost $1 million, which is what it's on its way to doing. And it's just not acceptable that like this healthcare monster is running out of control. And so in many ways like this is like the fundamental policy political question of our time. That kind of needs to be dealt with. Again, these issues become much easier to deal with in a high growth environment, yep. Right? In an environment with very rapid technological development. Let me give you the good news story on healthcare. Everybody talks about healthcare. You can't break these curves. There's one area of healthcare that is incredibly sophisticated, technologically advanced, and the price curve looks like Moore's law. The price curve looks like video games. The price curve is just a straight line down, and the quality of the service has gone way up. And that's LASIK eye surgery, right? And the reason that's the case is because it's outside the system. It's a discretionary purchase paid for by the consumer. And the LASIK eye studios are in like strip malls, and they've got like 3 people and like a super advanced, incredibly advanced like laser eye machine. And you go in there and you get zapped and you have perfect eyesight, and every year it gets better and cheaper. And so that's like an example of what happens if you're able to touch these sectors with technology and if you're able to get them out from under all the regulatory and government overhang. And so that potential exists, I think, throughout the system. But fundamentally, we have to decide we want it. And fundamentally, the population of the country has to decide that it wants it.